Welcome to the CrossFit Alioth Unleashed podcast, where we discuss health and fitness, business, mindset, and much more. With your host, Coach Lloyd. Welcome everyone to our first episode of the Alioth Unleashed podcast. As James pointed out before, take two. We've definitely tried this before, but thankfully now we're finally here and ready to rock and roll. So like I said, we have Mr. James Wright on the podcast. Obviously, there was only one person to start the podcast with, and that's the OG and the manager of CrossFit Alioth itself. James, how are we doing?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure, mate. I'm sure all the listeners and viewers will be excited to see what you have to say about yourself and everything to do with CrossFit Alioth. So we're just going to start off with a bit about yourself, your upbringing, and what it was like growing up in Leeds, I think it was.
I grew up actually in Cumbria, so South Cumbria, northwest of England. Whole life basically there until university. Small primary school, still small secondary school. Before I then went and did my degree in Leeds, so that's where Leeds comes in.
Okay, so what was Cumbria like growing up in Cumbria?
Boring.
So
like my parents were very pro sport because they were pro me not getting into trouble because there's nothing to do. So I was pushed. Yeah, I guess push is the right word. Mm-hmm. I was encouraged to do a lot of sport. So I did a lot of judo, I did a lot of rugby, a lot of track and field, all the way through my school career and then even into university.
Okay.
So there's not a lot to do. Later into my later teens, I spent a lot of time in Manchester with track and field, just because there's very little facilities in Cumbria, very little quality coaching, let's call it. So I spent a lot of time in Manchester as well.
So for those that don't know, how small or big is Cumbria? Because the way you're making it sound now, it's just this little village that nothing really happens around there. So
South Cumbria is very, very small. Like in terms of it's a big place. It's one of the big. I think it's the second biggest county in terms of like how big it is. Mm-hmm. But in terms of population, I'm pretty sure it's one of the lowest. Right. So it's Cumbria hosts the Lake Districts, so it's very, very green. But there's very, very little to do in terms of like city life. So like cars need to get everywhere. Public transport pretty sparse. So yeah, that's what I mean by saying it's like it's middle of nowhere, as we should tell people.
Okay. And what's your first memory of being like active, any sort of sport? What was the first sport you played? What you got into?
I did actually play a little bit of football in my let's call it primary school years. Mm-hmm. Played a lot of like five-a-side and stuff when I was younger. Wasn't particularly good. I've not got particularly good foot on me. All I was kind of good at was running fast. So that's where the kind of track came in. But yeah, I played a lot of football early on, and then just before secondary school, I started playing a lot of rugby. I played for club side instead of playing just for schools.
So you've just been brought up with a lot of sport, basically?
Yeah, a lot of sport. My parents were very encouraging on sport. They didn't have the opportunities themselves, so they wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity to do whatever I wanted to do in terms of sport.
That's nice of them.
Yeah, it was good.
And what was you like in school then? And be honest.
No, so I have and always will be a massive nerd. But I guess to kind of avoid being like bullied, I had the advantage of being pretty good at sport. So I was, I guess, just about accepted with the cool kids because I was good at sport. But I was always a nerd. But I was also somebody who used to get in a lot of trouble for cruising because I'm not a daft lad, but at the same time, I'm not necessarily the best when it comes to academic stuff. Mm-hmm. It would take a great deal of interest in a subject for me to really dive in and push hard on my studies.
I see.
So I was a smart kid, I was a nerd, but I think I was a teacher's nightmare because I'd also just kind of cruise through subjects when I knew I didn't have to do that much work to pass it.
I see. I can sort of relate to that. It's funny how when we're growing up in school that you know how to sort of, like you said, not get bullied. Yeah, like you knew that being good in a sport, such as being popular in maybe a football team, would help not get bullied from certain people.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think I was just about good enough at. Well, I played rugby county level under 16s for so Cumbria, and we're not the best rugby anyway, but so I was one of the kind of star players as such. I scored a lot of tries for rugby, so I was already in on the rugby team, which is pretty much at secondary school, the cool kids to an extent. So that kind of kept me out of trouble to most of the time.
Okay. And what about you out of school? Did you keep out of trouble as well there, or?
So my social circle was very different out of school because of the sport. Because from about 14 to 15, I spent a lot of time out of the county with track in particular. So I started going down initially to Wigan at the weekends. I know. But at the time, it was one of the few indoor tracks. So
I see.
Avoid the bad weather in the northwest. So I got down there, started mixing with a different group of other track athletes who were also pretty good, and that evolved into Manchester. Even during the week, so I used to started going down to Manchester like 2 or 3 times a week during the school week. Yeah. So obviously my social circle was very different. I had my friends at school, but I spent a large amount of time with people in Manchester, and even they weren't necessarily all from Manchester, they were from surrounding areas, because it was it was a development squad where everyone, kind of the best in the region, was coming to train at the same place together. Yeah. So it's different social circles. I still got in plenty of trouble. Still partied. Still did the teenage things. We all drank and that kind of thing. But it was in a very, very different setting, I guess.
Yeah. Seems like you kept yourself on the straight and narrow, like they say. How much of an influence did your parents have in that growing up? Like you just said that they obviously pushed you towards sport to try and keep you out of trouble. How much of an influence did they have on you?
No, a huge influence in terms of particularly for the sport stuff, because if I didn't have their backing, I wouldn't have been able to go anywhere. Sure. Like they committed, a significant amount financially, time to get me around these places. Like Manchester from where I live was like a minimum an hour and 15 drive, so that's 2.5 hours round trip. We were training 2 to 3 hours at night. So it was a good 5-6 hours of my parents, evening pretty much committed. You get home late, go to bed. Yeah. So my dad worked shifts, so it was always difficult for him. So it was my mum a lot of the time who was driving us around. So huge impact on that, because if they hadn't have committed financially and their own time to help me and my brother when he got a little bit older to commit to the sport, particularly to track and field. Yeah. And there'd been nothing, because there wasn't really anything in Cumbria, particularly high level to train with.
So when we go to your track and field sort of career, if you want to call it, how did you do? Like, how did that come about?
So I was basically just a quick runner. So I didn't start track until what some people will see as like later. So I started really seriously at like 14, 15 age. I'm a fast runner. And then the typical development pathways in track, which still exists today, is to push people into multi-events. So UK Athletics pushes what's the multi-events initiative, which is basically the long-term goal to develop decathletes, or heptathletes if you're a woman.
So just for people that aren't sure what that is.
So decathlon is 10 events over 2 days. Obviously, it's part of the Olympic setup in terms of track athletics. Decathlon is 100 meters, long jump, shot put, high jump, 400 meters, 110 meter hurdles, discus, javelin, pole vault, and 1500 meters.
Wow, surprisingly well then.
Yeah. So obviously at 14, 15, it's not as many events. It was like, what would be the under 15 age groups, like pentathlon. So it was hurdles, long jump, high jump, shot put, and 800 meters. Okay. So
so you're having to do all of them basically?
Yes, you have to train for all of those basically. Okay. So I was a quick runner. You get sucked in. Yeah. I had a pretty good knack at sprint hurdles. I was kind of fearless, would be the right word. And because it was quick, I was not a bad long jumper. Then everything else was kind of like just learn on the go. So they ended up being the two major sports of me kind of doing. I won those decathlons. So I just got sucked into that, and you just year by year, you pick up more events as you get older. So, it goes from pentathlon to when I was at school, it was pentathlon, octathlon, which is basically the decathlon minus
2 events, I guess.
Pole vault and something else. I can't remember what it would have been.
Most dangerous ones, I guess. Probably pole vault and shot put, right?
Pole vault. No, I can't remember what the other event would have been. Anyway.
8 events.
8 events instead of 10. and then decathlon when you turn like 18, essentially. So I trained for a lot of events, but I specialised particularly in sprint hurdles and long jump. I won. So you could compete in the region as such. So there's North of England. So there's North of England athletics, Midlands athletics, Southern athletics, through all the way through to seniors to under 20, under 23s. I won regional medals. I won northern medals. Won lots of northern championships. For periods of time, I held northern records in sprint hurdles, which would have been 100-meter hurdles most of the time, or 110s. And then national level, I picked up a couple of, I picked up one or two. I won a couple of national medals, like bronze medal in national championships as well, like under 20 age group. I was successful to an extent. Like my parents would, I was saying this now, my parents in the room, they would be like, "No, you're really, really good."
Yeah.
I was the top 99%, but it's not the top 99% that are successful, right? It's the top 99.99% that are successful in terms of, if you measure success as going to Olympics or Commonwealth Games,
which
maybe the
you didn't do.
Which I didn't do, no. No, for record, I did not go to the Olympics. Like that, I was good. Yeah. I really was good, but not good enough, essentially.
Why do you think that is then? Why do you think you just couldn't quite make it? Talent, just raw talent, or time practicing maybe?
It's hard to necessarily know on the talent thing, because with the right coaching and development, there's probably a lot more to be found.
Especially nowadays as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like, so maybe not as a talent, but just circumstances not necessarily always being right. Like the reality is that, so you look at hurdles, I'm not short, I'm quite short in the legs, so my hips are quite low. So essentially with hurdles, you're looking to keep your hips high and maintain the same hip height all the way through the hurdles. If you're short and you have to do like up and down with your hips over the hurdles,
it's going to slow you down,
it slows you down. So there are, I guess, what you call biomechanical disadvantages to being not so long in the leg. There have been successful hurdlers at my height and my leg length, I'm sure, but I struggled when the hurdles went to the top height.
I see.
So again, I'll work in Imperial because this is the way it was. So it was 3'3", for most of the top end, for the youths, and then when you move to seniors, it's 3'6", so it's 3 inches, which doesn't sound like a lot.
It's a lot.
A lot of jokes about 3 inches, but it's a significant amount when you're trying to run over 10 obstacles that are in the way. So it just wasn't quite. Inches. So yeah. Well, I guess it wasn't quite tall enough.
Yeah.
And I did all right in long jump. I came very, very close in long jump and hurdles to picking up England vests, like, millimeters millimeters in long jump and hundreds of seconds in hurdles to having England vests. Never quite there, but it sets a good foundation for the rest of my life.
Sure, I think it's a good sport, obviously, getting into coming up, when you're younger.
Yeah.
Any sort of sport that you can get into is decent.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
After your track and field career, what sort of sport was it you got into after that?
So I got into CrossFit pretty quickly out of track and field.
Was you young? Pretty young when you got into CrossFit?
Early 20s. So I've been doing CrossFit for almost 12 years, I think. 11 and a half, 12 years of CrossFit. So I pretty much picked it up as I came out of university. So I kind of fell out of the track and field bubble as I graduated. It was very difficult to have training partners because you were training in a group within the university. And people graduate, people move away, so you kind of lose training partners, whatever, and just kind of lost a lot of interest because...
It's a bit like Dubai.
Yeah, it's difficult. So it's kind of not fell out of love, but just difficult, didn't have the energy. I was working started a job after graduating. So my track coach himself had been going down to CrossFit Leeds a little bit, just after graduation. And he was like, "James, you're a nutter. You'll like this stuff." So I started Googling it. I thought, this is a lot of rubbish. This is crazy. See people doing touch and go reps and stuff. It's been from track and field background. Like, this is bonkers. People are going to hurt themselves regardless, whatever. So eventually I went down and did a session and absolutely loved it. And then never looked back.
Do you remember your first session? Do you remember your workout that you did? Or?
I couldn't tell the exact workout. I know we definitely did like find a heavy hang power clean double or triple or something. And I remember the coach being, and Mike, who's the affiliate owner, still the affiliate owner of CrossFit Alioth now, being like, you're quite good at this.
Yeah. So in your first session at CrossFit, did you go and find a heavy
hang, like
in
a
your
heavy,
first session?
So obviously, So just
I don't think we do that anymore.
No, for sure. Like obviously, so like I didn't do fundamentals because they deemed me as like coming from what I'd done. I'd weightlifted.
Bit of background.
So obviously with track and field, we weightlifted. I'd done some cleans, some really, really bad cleans. We'll look back at it, and I had snatched, but really, really bad snatch. So like I understood I knew my way around the barbell.
You could move your body.
Yeah, I didn't.
Like that body awareness.
I didn't know how to hook grip, whatever, right? So I remember we did like a heavy hang power clean. I must have done like, I think that was around the 70, 75 kilo mark. Probably like the heaviest in the class at the time. And then it was like a workout. I'm sure it was a partner workout because I'm sure it was my ex-girlfriend at the time who came down with me. Yeah. And it was like, you go, I go workout with running and some other stuff in there. I can't remember.
Did you survive?
Yeah, for sure. I survived. It was good fun. Like I said, you did one workout and I was hooked.
Yeah.
I was like, this is crazy. This is a nice distraction to do something else aside from track. Just a bit of my life.
I think looking back, I do think that when we were sort of getting into CrossFit, it was aimed for those people that were a little bit tapped in the head. So come down, try CrossFit. You give it a go. You'd be good at it because you can sort of dive into your...
you're a bit nuts.
Yeah. Whereas now it's sort of like going into more, delving into other sports. Maybe some jiu-jitsu guy wants to get stronger, he'd come and do CrossFit.
Exactly.
So it can complement other sports. But back in the day when we started, it is just down to those people that was crazy enough to do it.
I would use the word underground.
Yeah,
like
for
it
sure.
was
a bit like Fight Club.
So I started CrossFit, I'm sure it's 2011, back end of CrossFit, back end of 2011, or maybe early 2012. And it was very much underground. Like the gym was tiny. CrossFit is like, it was absolutely tiny. Like
a garage?
Yeah, just a garage with like a freestanding rig that bounced around. Wasn't drilled into the floor. Two rowers, handful of boxes, bunch of second-hand bars and plates, just whatever you can to get it done. Yeah. So yeah, it was obviously relatively unknown. It got busier over the years. I remember CrossFit Leeds was 2 sites at one point, and big space nowadays. And it was a very, very busy gym. I think when we started, it was like 30 or 40 of us who were all absolutely crazy, and we were all doing CrossFit to some random competition that absolutely nobody knew about. We definitely know prize money.
Yeah, it's definitely changed,
especially
in Dubai.
Yeah, for sure.
So growing up, when you was doing these sort of sports, whether it was track and field, CrossFit, football, whatever it might have been, who sort of influenced you, like in sport? Who did you look up to?
So obviously in track, there was just icons of my generation was a track. So like, it's actually quite ironic because so the big decathlete who was a world champ, multiple Olympic champion, world champion, was like a Roman Shebele. He was actually a guy from Czech. So obviously people necessarily understand that Alla, my wife, is from Czech, which is quite ironic at this point. So he was the big decathlete, and obviously sprint hurdles as a Brit. There was Colin Jackson. Yeah, and again multiple time track athlete, and then in CrossFit at that point, like the OG was still around. Like Froning was still winning or even starting his career at that point. Like still doing individual comps, still like he probably won 1 or 2 CrossFit games at that point. I would double check, but like so obviously he was the big one at that point. For sure. And then there's like the likes of Jason Kleeper still knocking around. And these guys who were just monsters. Obviously nowadays they don't look like monsters, but back then when I was doing a 75 kilo hang power clean and that was heavy, these guys were throwing around say 100 kilo clean and jerk, and I was like, wow. Nowadays people snatch double that weight. For sure. But they were the cool guys you look up to at that point.
I think a lot of people still do look up to those athletes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't 100%. You look at what they've done in terms of the careers and then stuff outside of that career. Like Jason Kleeper owns, 20 plus gyms nowadays. Sure. So it's impressive.
So let's just jump forward a little bit.
Yep.
Let's speak about CrossFit Alioth, which is where you do work. You're the manager of the gym. How did that come about?
So
did you apply for the job? Was it there on the?
So I moved to the Middle East January 2015. So I moved to Kuwait. I was in Kuwait for a year and a half, Met my wife, got married, was pretty settled in Kuwait to an extent, as you can be in a place like Kuwait. I love Kuwait, but it's also, again, anyone who's ever been there, it's double-edged sword. And then the gym owner of Alioth wanted to open a retail store, so weight fitness, whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. It's back in 2015 or 2016 when I came across to Dubai. It was still a very, very small, growing business. Mm-hmm. And so Hessa had got it in her head that she wanted to open whatever it takes, essentially end up being within Alioth in the gym. So anyway, so my background is outside of, before I started coaching full-time, which was obviously in Kuwait, was sports retail buy-in, sports retail management, with the founders from WIT. So the two founders from WIT, Sam and Dan. One was a housemate, so I lived with Dan for 3 or 4 years in Leeds, and Sam was my old boss for a specialist running retailer. And I'd done work for them, a consulting work for WIT while I was in Kuwait, as WIT was opening. Like I brought Noble to WIT, or I was the one who pushed WIT to approach Noble. I did a bunch of stuff with Strike Movement back in the day, stuff like that. Anyway, so they asked me to leave Kuwait and come to Dubai to help them set up WIT.
Which you did.
Dubai, which I did. Unfortunately, it was a complete car crash for multiple reasons. And it just basically slowed down, and we just basically decided to just call it a day with it. But there'd been 2 managers at Alioth before I started, and again, lack of direction, not necessarily just really running the business the way that the owner of Hessa wanted it to be like. And I'd obviously run a gym and manage a gym in Kuwait, so she's like, James, can you run the gym for us? And I was like, well, yeah, I can give it a try. Like, so it was a bit of a daunting experience for me, quite frankly, starting, because Alioth was this big, even at that point, which is like 9 to 12 months, the gym was a well-established brand in terms of like well-known globally, because Hessa had brought lots of athletes across, and obviously we'd gone through 2 managers already, and I was like, well, I don't want to be the third. So I was a bit daunted by the situation, didn't know how long it would last. But here I am, like...
How long has it been now?
Well, I renewed my visa the other week, so it's been 6 years.
6 years?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 6 years in one place is impressive for anyone, right?
And if you were to look back through those 6 years, what sort of challenges have you had to face and overcome? Like your main couple of challenges there, being a manager of
a lot of the challenges, particularly early days, were just like cultural, community challenges. So like having the right people in place in the right places to help grow a community of people. So like again, like I had no gym management experience aside from what I'd done in Kuwait, and it was very much hey, I like what they did at CrossFit Leeds. This community was really cool. I'm going to try and do it.
Let's try and replicate.
Let's try and replicate. Like we know, see what he's done. It's very much a trial and everything. So we did a really good job in Kuwait. Like a good staff team, really close and still close with everyone now. Speak to everyone who we work with still there, and we built this unique, very very unique community in Kuwait there. And I was like, well, we can just try again, and we'll try it again, and we changed a lot of stuff over the years. There's been a few obstacles to come over in terms of that, and having the right coaches and stuff in place was really the biggest challenge. Yeah. But being where we are now, like I don't think we would have got to where we are now if we hadn't done what we've done beforehand.
Right.
Because you have to kind of show that certain things don't work and certain things work. Basically prove that, for me, like convincing Hessa, the owner, that X, Y, Z doesn't work. That if you do this, this will happen. And it'd be like, we did this happened. I'm like, see, let's try it my way, let's do this. And then eventually you see the snowballing effect. And as out here always, it just takes long time to build trust, which is obviously what I did eventually.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it sounds like a little bit of, like learning as you go along.
Yeah,
a lot of trial and error. Obviously, it's not an easy job to take over. And be that third person.
Exactly. It's very much been a trial and error, a learn on the go kind of job. Like,
I mean, what job isn't like that, right?
Yeah, for sure. Don't
We
get me
sort
wrong.
of learn as we go along.
I think that's the unique thing with the Middle East as well, though, right? Like, in the world of CrossFit, maybe in the UK nowadays things are slightly different, but like, I won't be able to coach full time or manage a gym full time in a CrossFit affiliate without necessarily owning it.
For sure.
So that's a unique opportunity. So you just jump in and figure out as you go along, right?
Which I think you've done pretty well, mate.
Thank you.
Good.
Try my best.
So tell us what's the normal day like for a CrossFit manager, CrossFit Alioth? What do you do that perhaps people don't generally see? Sort of stuff that you do behind the scenes.
So my own day, obviously, it like any coach, I have a coaching schedule to follow. I have my own personal training clients that I train. I still write a bit of programming for other people as well. So the stuff that people necessarily don't see is potentially programming, writing some stuff for some of the guys that I look after, which is, again, something a coach will be doing as well anyway. Yeah. And then it's just keeping on track of the back of house stuff. So without going into too details, the business is still quite archaic in terms of management on finances because of business structure. Right? I'm not going to go into details. People, anyway, it's a little bit messy to run back a house. So there's a lot of manual work to be done, keeping on track of what's coming into the business, what's still to come out of the business, tracking membership numbers, keeping on top of generally just of what cash is in the bank, things like that. And then obviously just like we have weekly meetings in terms of the whole staff team. Now Rachel, Minhal and I meet on a weekly basis to go through like bigger picture things as well. I've then got meetings at times with some of the brands we work with. I spent a lot of time the last couple of months meeting with Alico, so Brandon at Alico. Obviously with some of the stuff we're doing with the event that we've obviously announced recently, Assemble. And just generally, there's a lot of networking that people actually don't always understand as well. Yeah. Like everything's face to face out here. Like it's just the culture of the Middle East. It's face to face, handshakes, fist bumps, coffee. Yeah. Which some people may not sound as work, but it's stuff that gets stuff to an end goal.
For sure. I think networking is a big part of a big successful CrossFit gym.
Yeah, for sure.
Even members inside of our gym, they all network.
Yeah, it's a big...
they all know what everybody does for a living.
Yeah.
They become friends, and that's how other people would come to the gym as well.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if stonemason is still around, but it's kind of like that. That's what we used to always describe CrossFit. It's like, oh, you need a plumber. Yeah. Maybe not here as much, but to that extent. But
definitely
like, yeah. You need a plumber. You need a.
This will happen in England more so.
Yeah, things got broken. Oh, so and so can fix it. Yeah. To an extent, it still happens here, but it's on a different scale, right? Oh, I know somebody who works in this office. I need this doing. Okay, well, this guy will help you get this done.
Yeah. Get some Wasta.
Yeah, exactly. Wasta, just connections, relationships being built. Like everyone helps each other out, right? Like the gym is very much a big daft community.
Say that again, especially at CrossFit Alioth.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So looking back for these past 6 years, what have you learnt the most about being a manager down at CrossFit Alioth and working with like such diverse people in and out of the gym? Like, what have you took away from that so far?
Still, I said, the last time we obviously sat down, I think I said the same thing. It's patience.
You did, yeah.
You have to just wait. Like the Middle East works really slowly. Be patient with things. And then just basically, I always try to give people a large amount of chance and time for some things. Some people may see that as me like, being inactive. But I very much kind of a believer in letting people do things. And, like in a situation where like there's negatives and stuff going on, like give people enough rope to hang themselves. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I don't want to jump to conclusions of things. So you just let things play out for a bit, have and then and try and fix them after things have kind of happened.
Yeah,
Don't try and jump to conclusions, because things out here, like there's a lot, again, in CrossFit and stuff, like there's a lot of Chinese whispers and stuff like that, right? So it's, for me, just being patient and just in general, whether that's just management. Again, my working relationship with Hesse as well, I guess to an extent, it's just a bit of patience as well. We get there in the end. And things just don't necessarily happen fast out here. If you try and rush, you try and run and operate like you're in the West here, you're going to lose your hair, which I guess I already have. But I would have lost the rest of my hair if I tried to operate as if it was in the UK in terms of timelines.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good skill to have, and you definitely need patience to be a manager of CrossFit Alioth, because rather you than me is what they say.
For sure. It's part of the job, it's fine.
So another part of your job is coaching, and you still do that?
Yes.
Whether it's less hours than all the rest of us, but that's fine, because obviously you do other parts of the job. But what keeps you motivated to keep getting up in the morning, coach, and run that gym, especially coach?
I honestly, I love being on the coaching floor. And I don't want to make that sound like it's a bit, like over exaggerate. Like, I enjoy coaching. Like, again, I've been involved with CrossFit for a long time, whether it's from a coaching perspective or just like a community perspective. I enjoy being in the gym, enjoy seeing people, talking to people, the relationships with people and stuff like that. Like, again, it's about that networking kind of concept as well. Like, I like the people we coach. I genuinely don't like a dislike anyone in the gym. Like, the gym is it's full of crazy ass people. Don't get me wrong, but most people really, we like coaching those people. And then I guess on like the reverse, I enjoy seeing people reach their goals as well. Yeah. Still, like, that's why, to an extent why I go into coaching, because it's rewarding, right?
For sure.
Still seeing people, whatever that goal is, or small goal or target, seeing people hit it, it's rewarding. It's great to see as a coach, to see some people do what they wanted to do.
Yeah,
that's still massive.
Have you ever been emotional in a situation like that, where you've seen a client do something, you've actually got emotional, you've had to hide back tears?
I'm not really
no, you're not really an emotional person.
I wouldn't say I was a tears guy, but there's definitely some times where we've been very, very proud of people for hitting things. Like, I've had the pleasure of coaching a handful of very talented people over the years in the gym, and some people that I've programmed for and coach outside of the gym, and seeing those guys perform either in the gym, say like for competition stuff, or seeing them on the competition floor somewhere in the region or whatever, and see them do certain things is like it's again, I won't say it's a tearful moment. It's a very, very good moment. It's been very, very proud to see people like. Yeah. So I won't say it's tearful, no. But there's been a lot of times been very, very proud of people you've coached. You build these relationships with people, particularly if you're working with like a client on a one-on-one basis. Yeah. You build a relationship with people, so of course you're proud of people.
Half the job of one-on-one coaching is just being that person's sort of go-to.
Agony on.
Yeah, like listen to all the problems and take it on board.
100%. Like it's that relationship building, right? And that relationship building's in many different ways, and some people see it very, very differently as well. Like, because we're all different characters and personalities. This is why I guess why we work well with different clients. Like your client base is potentially different to what my client base is to Kaz or to Minhal. That just slightly different personalities and people that are attracted to a certain person to work with as well. So it works.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Let's go back to the gym and not you. What makes our gym different? Why do you think people should come and visit Alioth, or maybe consider a membership? Like, what do you think makes us different, or what stands out about CrossFit Alioth?
I would say right now the community is very, very strong. Now, it's a big buzzword. So
I think most people would say that, right?
Yeah, I'm sure that, again, and most of the coaches would just be like, oh, that community is great.
Different gyms.
Yeah. Because you spend time with people that, you build relationships, right? So I would say the community is really, really strong. But outside of that, like, some really, really experienced coaches. And to an extent, I don't necessarily think our own community always necessarily grasps that as well. Like, again, I've been involved with CrossFit for 12 years. I think I'm coaching it for now about 7 or 8 years, I guess. You've been in coaching for what, 5, 6, 7 years
longer
now?
than that. I've been in the UAE for 8 years.
8 years, so
in the
longer,
UAE,
yeah. And same again with most of the coaches in the gym. Like everyone's coached for a long time. Everyone's very, very experienced. And I think that's a unique thing in the gym as well. Like it's something that it's definitely for me on a recruitment part, is that's the kind of coach that I look for nowadays in terms of like the experience to be that journeyed coach.
Yeah, I think now I think of that, like if I was to think about my coaching or myself as a person 6 years ago, for example, when I first come over, or 8 years ago to now, I've definitely learned a lot, and my coaching's definitely definitely changed.
To swing back to when I first moved out here to Kuwait, the gym I was at was completely brand new. So it was new. So every single member that walked through the door had never done CrossFit. Either Kuwaiti, Jordanian, Syrian, Lebanese, basically Arab client base. English, not the first language. Some don't speak English at all. You learn on your feet, and you have to just move and adapt incredibly quickly. So that's the unique thing about Middle East. Again, you get so much experience you wouldn't get anywhere else as well.
Been in the exact same situation.
Yeah, you were in LA and when you
crazy, mate.
Yeah, so it's like
crazy, but a very good experience as well.
Yeah, phenomenally valuable. Again, I've always said it. I guess it's similar to you again from where you were originally coaching. If you can coach there, you can coach anywhere. Like coaching in Alioth is relatively easy in terms of the fact that our members have been well coached for a long time now, so they move pretty well. So a lot of the time, quite frankly, it's more of a nice work. Try this.
Right. Tweaks.
We're not going stop right there before you split yourself in half. There's a lot less of that. So in theory, that's necessarily easier, but it's a very different experience, which is a lot less stressful. I guess easy is the right word. It's a less dramatic experience for coaching. And
where do you see your CrossFit Alioth in, let's say, 5 years from now? Like, where do you see it going? So it's Dubai. It's the country of opportunity. Yeah. There's never a goal that's too big. So
yes, you are right. There is never a goal too big. So something we're working on right now quite a lot is the online side of the business. That's the big goal for 2023. That's not saying we're neglecting anything in the gym, but obviously we have this great staff team and this great community. So we're trying to figure out now how we can bring that to the rest of the world, which is obviously hard work because the online world is a very big and crazy place, and there are a lot of people already out there offering things. So there's a lot of work for us to do on that. So I know 5 years, hopefully we have some form of platform for the online that's established at that point. And then in terms of the gym, like I would love to tell you we're going to have this huge mega gym. But I guess that just really depends on what happens in Dubai as well. Because Dubai is so fast moving. You never know what's going to happen in 5 years.
True.
You really don't. So
apart from buildings going up,
more and more building left, right, and centre, and rents going up through the roof. Like we're obviously working hard with. We mentioned before, dropped it before. We've obviously announced the Assemble event.
We were just about to go on to that.
Which we will go through more, but the plan will be to hopefully year on year grow that as well. So hopefully in 5 years we have this established event as well. It's a give back to the community as well.
So go on. I mean, we can delve into that Assemble now. So just tell people what Assemble is, how it come about, and the idea of making Assemble this big sort of CrossFit event.
So obviously there's a lot of moving parts to pull an event off. So I personally, and I've wanted to do an event for years, but it's very difficult to do because there's so many moving parts. Space in Dubai is expensive. It's just about how rent's going up. You pay a premium. You want to do it outside of the gym. Usually it's going to cost you a small fortune. So it's taken us a long time to find partners just to give us space, right? So with the luxury, we've now got a really good event partner, which is obviously Gems, who are giving us the school for the space. And then obviously you need an event to at least cover its costs. So then you're looking at being able to pull off an event with an equipment partner. So again, as I mentioned before, our growth in terms of developing networks and building really strong partnerships with established brands. So obviously something that I worked hard with Brandon from Alico is to pull this off in terms of getting equipment for the event. So I haven't worked out the cost in terms of the equipment, but we're very, very blessed that Alico are supporting us. So it's Alico and then a party here called Al Yusuf, which we will announce and go into more later. But they're going to basically supply all the event equipment. So that's bars, plates, a rig.
Nice.
Kettlebells, like
all brand new, right?
All brand new, like coming from Sweden. They're on the boat in 2 or 3 days out to get to here. So like the event, those are two big things we've now been able to tick off, which have taken a long time to get in place because never had a venue before that our venue partner that we have. Never had a locked in high quality equipment supplier, which we now do. So we're really hopeful we can pull off a really, really good event. Like we've hosted a lot of in-house competitions over the years, and as we've done those in-house competitions, we've increased the complexity of what we've done in terms of we started using Competition Corner more. We started using the scheduling side of Competition Corner. We've essentially used the in-house throwdowns as practice for the real thing. So we're pretty confident we can pull off a really good event. I've got a good staff team. I've got a very good support team behind the staff team that have helped us. So Jean has obviously helped us as a partner. So Jean's obviously involved with the event as well in terms of we're going to be hosting inclusive events for the people. The determination is the correct word out here during the non-working periods during the competition.
Nice.
So Jean's been a massive asset, and then obviously I've got good friends in likes of Diego, who's involved with Dubai Fitness Championships. Can't call it CrossFit anymore. Who's been a massive asset just to me and to Rachel and Minhal in terms of just little bits of advice in terms of what they do and stuff, just to kind of like, let's not screw this up, quite frankly. So we're in a position now where we hope we can put on a really, really good show. There are other partners which we're just kind of like just figuring out. Like I've got a couple of meetings next week to kind of finish up a few things in terms of like footwear, apparel for competitors. We'll announce the next couple of days that and I can say this on the podcast, that T-Fench, which is the pretty much the biggest manufacturer of like worms, so like the sandbag worms, they're now going to support the event. I've emails and had that ticked off, so they're going to send in the next couple of weeks these sandbags across. So we'll have worms to the competition, which will also make it quite cool, and they're good quality. They're not rubbish things that like a competition we won't name in Sharjah that they almost kill people with worms. Like we want to have a safe, good quality competition. So hopefully we're really, really good in terms of the experience for people. And maybe this year it will only be attract people from the UAE. But the idea is we really want it to be a giving back thing to the community. So obviously last handful of years there hasn't really been a lot of events in terms of community level. Like not anyone can put an event on. There's loads of events where they're throwing money around left, right, and centre, silly prizes, and the event's a complete car crash. Like finishing 4 hours late, judging standard not good enough, and these are things we believe that we have under control ourselves, so we can put on a good event, and it should be a fun event for people to be involved with. So really excited to get it moving in January, and then hopefully we can grow it year on year and attract people from the whole of the Gulf and the Middle East. Just have a really good community event. Like I've always highlighted the Battle of the East, which is the big competition in Kuwait. Again, having been in Kuwait, the Battle of the East has been...
You've done that many times.
Yeah, I've done it many times. I won it 1 year.
Hey.
I did get carried. Let me just point out, I got carried a lot by Street Horner and Miko. But that's always been a big community event. And Kuwait's restricted to an extent because of some of the visa stuff, because of the way the country is. So we want to be part of that greater community in the Gulf, offering a really good event. Like the Battle of the East is a great event. And we're not just not a competition thing in terms of like I
one's
know
in Kuwait, one's in Dubai,
exactly, right? Yeah, but we hope that people who have been involved with battle these over the years, and even the Sand Clash event now in Saudi Arabia, people will come across, but it's also going to attract people who are not necessarily right at the top of the game. We want it to be a community event, less about the prize money and the prizes and winning, and more about being a really good experience. Like a bit like, to an extent, a bit like turf games has been out here, but potentially filling the void between that elite category at turf and the intermediate. Like some people found the intermediate not necessarily challenging enough in terms of some of the stuff, but the elite crushed them. So hopefully we can kind of fill a nice little space that's not there.
Which I think some people listening will be happy about as well.
Yeah,
Which,
hopefully.
You know, there's a sort of a niche at the minute for that sort of competition, I think.
Yeah, I really hope so. Like, and again, like I hope I'm confident we'll pull off a really good event.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get many people involved in
For those that don't know, when is Assemble?
So
what date?
So it's end of January. So it's 27th, 28th of January. So it's designed to be deliberately a couple of weeks before the Open starts.
Okay. So yeah, make sure you all sign up to Assemble.
Yeah, so if you follow the social media, which is Assemble Dubai, you'll see all the announcements as things come officially enough for us to announce in terms of partnerships. But there's some really cool stuff in terms of partnerships and what will benefit in terms of what competitors get given. So it should be really cool.
Yeah. I think everyone to do with Alioth, whether the staff or people who are actually taking part or people that are helping out judging, I think we're all pretty excited for it, which is going to be it's going to be a very good weekend. Yeah,
like I'm super happy with the feedback we've had from our members in terms of them being excited about it. Like we opened the competition sign up early for our members. We gave them a small chunk of the option to sign up before we opened it to everyone else. And uptake's been really good, and then we've had a lot of really good feedback from members being like, yeah, we really want to be involved, we want to judge, we want to whatever. Like it's been really
good community, so people are going to help us out, and I'm guessing everyone's going to help trying to make it this really good, well-run competition.
Hopefully, yeah.
In January. So moving on, we're nearly done. Just a couple more questions and some quick fire sort of fun stuff for you, which you'll enjoy.
I can't wait.
But for those that are listening, especially members, what one piece of advice would you give our members? Whether it's to do with life, gym, training, just one piece of advice to give them.
I would just say continue to trust us.
Okay.
Like if there's ever doubt anything that's going on in the gym, trust that.
Trust James. Don't trust us. Trust James.
Trust me.
He's the manager.
Yeah, trust me. No, trust that whatever we're doing, if we ever announce anything, we change anything, it's genuinely because we're trying to improve the experience. We're trying to help people get better. That would be my thing. Just please continue. I'll ask people to continue to keep trusting us, and they obviously do. Mm-hmm. But that would be my thing. Just please continue to trust that we do know what we're doing in terms of classes, programming, etc.
And if we don't know what we're doing, we pretend we do and we wing it. So
yes, that as well.
I always got told to do that. If you don't know what you're doing, at least look confident.
So fake it till you make it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's a piece of advice that I got from one of my ex-bosses when I was standing up on stage talking about something that I wasn't supposed to be talking about. So anyhow, let's finish off with these quick fire. So I'd say questions, but they're not questions. What's going to happen is I'm going to throw out a word and you're going to respond with whatever comes to your head.
Fine.
Once I tell you that word. Fine. All right, so just a few. And please no swearing.
I'll try my best.
All right. The Alioth Unleashed podcast.
Good so far.
Social media.
Pain in the backside.
Dubai.
Opportunities.
The Alioth coaches.
Good banter.
The Alioth members.
Also good banter most of the time.
Come on. Took the easy route there. Coffee.
Life.
Last one. Newcastle United.
Going places.
Oh, hey. Okay. That's it. That's the CrossFit Alioth Unleashed podcast, episode 1. Thank you so much for James for coming down and giving me an hour of his time.
Thank you for having me.
Pick his brain. So yeah, thank you so much for listening and watching if you are doing. Any last words?
No.
There we are. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you to our main podcast sponsor, Frio Sparkling Water, and a huge thanks to all you guys spending time watching and listening to our Unleashed podcast. Don't forget to hit follow, like, share, and subscribe to our channel.